Okay, ever feel like your brain just won't quit? Like it's stuck on replay, analyzing every little thing.
Oh, absolutely.
That's what we're diving into today. Overthinking.
And I think a lot of people think, oh, yeah, overthinking. Who hasn't done that? But we've got some research here that really digs deep into the nuances.
Yeah, and one thing our sources point out is that there's actually a difference between just like general overthinking and this thing called rumination.
Ah,
So
yes.
overthinking is kind of that big umbrella, right? Overanalyzing everything.
Hmm.
But rumination, that's specifically about the past. It's that replaying of awkward moments, the what ifs about things you can't change.
And that's where it can get really sticky. I mean, we all know overthinking isn't exactly fun,
Right.
but when it's rumination, dwelling on those past things, it can keep you locked in this cycle of negativity.
And our sources don't just stop at saying it's annoying. They actually lay out how overthinking can really mess with your happiness, like anxiety, for example.
Oh, big time.
Have you ever noticed how, like, a tiny worry, if you overthink it enough, suddenly feels like a massive problem?
It's almost like your mind has this built-in amplifier, taking a little seed of doubt and turning it into this huge, looming threat.
And when you're always expecting the worst, no wonder you end up feeling anxious.
Totally.
Our sources also talk about how overthinking can chip away at your self-esteem.
Yeah, if you're constantly replaying those moments where you messed up, those social
It's
blunders.
like you're building a case against yourself.
Right. And that makes you less likely to put yourself out there, try new things. Your world gets smaller and smaller.
You know what else I've noticed? Overthinking steals your joy in the moment.
Oh, 100%.
Like, you can be in the middle of something amazing, a beautiful sunset, a great conversation,
Hmm.
and you're so stuck in your head that you barely even register it.
And this is actually a huge reason why things like mindfulness are so trendy right now. People are realizing, wait, I'm missing out on life because I'm up in my head all the time.
And that's just the tip of the iceberg, right? Overthinking can also lead to decision paralysis.
Ugh, yes. Tell me you haven't spent way too long deciding what to eat for dinner because you overthought it.
Oh, all the time. It's like the more options you have, the harder it is to actually choose.
It's almost like our brains are wired to focus on what could go wrong, even with small decisions.
So we end up feeling overwhelmed, even when it's something simple.
Right, and this actually makes sense from an evolutionary perspective.
Oh, how so?
Back in the day, our ancestors had to be super alert to danger.
Makes sense, survival and all.
Exactly. But that same instinct, in today's world where we're not constantly facing life or death situations, it can get a bit out of whack.
So we're like cavemen with smartphones, still wired to overthink every little thing.
Exactly. So we've established overthinking, not great, but why do we do it? What's going on in our minds?
Yeah, like what's the root cause of all this mental chaos?
Well, fear of failure is a big one. I mean, our society is obsessed with success. So mistakes feel like the end of the world.
Like if you're not perfect, you're a failure.
And that kind of pressure makes people overthink everything, trying to avoid any possibility of messing up.
Ironically, that can actually lead to more mistakes.
Absolutely. You get so paralyzed by indecision that you end up shooting yourself in the foot.
It's like that saying, perfect is the enemy of good.
Another big driver is this deep need for certainty.
Uh-huh.
We want to feel in control, to know what's going to happen.
Like we're trying to predict the future.
Exactly. And when life throws us curveballs, which it inevitably does, our minds go into overdrive trying to make sense of it all.
And then there's perfectionism, right? That feeling that good enough is never actually good enough.
Oh, that's a big one. You set these impossibly high standards for yourself.
And then beat yourself up when you inevitably fall short.
It's exhausting, and it keeps you from enjoying the process even when you're doing well.
We also can't forget about the role of past experiences. Our sources talk about how things like past hurts, traumas, difficult relationships
Yeah, absolutely.
can make you more prone to overthinking in the present,
It's like you're always on guard, looking for signs of danger.
trying to protect yourself from getting hurt again.
And while that's understandable, it can also create a lot of unnecessary stress in your relationships.
So we've talked about the psychology of it all, but let's get a little more scientific.
Okay, yeah.
What's actually happening in our brains when we get stuck in these overthinking loops?
Well, imagine your prefrontal cortex, the part of your brain responsible for decision-making, as a computer. It's powerful, but it can get overloaded.
And when we overthink, we're essentially bombarding it with too much information.
Way too much. No wonder we feel mentally exhausted.
It's like we're running a marathon in our minds.
And to make things worse, all that overthinking triggers a flood of stress hormones, particularly cortisol.
Cortisol, that's the wired but tired hormone.
Exactly. And while it's helpful in short bursts, chronic stress keeps those cortisol levels high.
Which messes with your sleep, your mood, even your immune system.
It's a whole cascade of not-so-fun effects.
Now here's a fascinating concept. Neuroplasticity.
Ah, yes.
Our brains are constantly changing and adapting, right?
It's amazing.
But this also means that the more we overthink, the more we reinforce those neural pathways.
It's like wearing a path in the grass.
You keep walking the same route, and it gets deeper and deeper.
So overthinking can actually become a habit, a pattern that's hard to break.
But the good news is, our brains can also change for the better.
Absolutely. With practice, we can rewire those pathways and create healthier thought patterns.
So we're not stuck with our overthinking habits.
Nope, we have the power to change.
And that's exactly what we'll be exploring next. Okay, so we've explored the why of overthinking, the fear of failure, the need for certainty, and those pesky echoes of past hurts. We even peeked into how it all affects our brains. But now for the million-dollar question, how do we actually break free?
The great thing is, your research has uncovered a whole treasure trove of strategies. And one of the most powerful ones is mindfulness. Now, before you tune me out thinking, oh, I've heard this before, stick with me for a sec.
Mindfulness can sound a bit woo-woo sometimes.
Right, exactly. But it doesn't have to be about emptying your mind or becoming some kind of meditation guru.
So it's not about, like, stopping your thoughts altogether.
Nope, not at all. It's more about noticing them without judgment. So instead of getting swept away by those worries, it's like standing on the shore, watching the waves come and go.
Instead of getting knocked over by them.
Yes. And there are tons of simple techniques you can try, even just focusing on your breath for a few minutes.
Just paying attention to that inhale, exhale.
Exactly. It helps bring you back to the present moment.
Our sources also talk about setting time limits for worrying, which sounds kind of strange, right? Like scheduling your worry time.
It might sound counterintuitive, but it can be incredibly effective. You literally give yourself, say, 15 minutes each day, and during that time, worry all you want.
Let it all out.
Get it out of your system. But once that timer goes off, you commit to shifting your focus to something more positive.
So it's like you're giving your worries a designated space.
The container, almost.
But then you don't let them take over your entire day.
Right. And I think a key point here is that action is the antidote to overthinking.
Yes. One source called it action over analysis, which I love.
It's about moving from being stuck in your head to actually doing something.
Even if it's a small step.
Exactly, because even a tiny action can create this momentum, this sense of, okay, I'm doing something about this.
It's like you're breaking that cycle of just thinking and thinking and thinking.
For example, let's say you're overthinking a project at work. Instead of getting bogged down in all the what-ifs, try breaking it down into smaller steps.
So instead of seeing this huge, overwhelming task,
You see a series of manageable actions.
and then you just focus on tackling one step at a time.
Exactly. Now, this next strategy might feel a little uncomfortable, but it's so powerful, challenging your thoughts.
Because when you're in that overthinking spiral, your thoughts can feel so real.
So true. It's like they have this weight, this authority.
But we need to learn to question them.
Absolutely. Ask yourself, is this thought actually true? What evidence do I have? Is there another way to look at this situation?
It's like you're putting your thoughts on trial.
Yes. You're the lawyer, demanding evidence, cross-examining those worries to see if they hold up.
And you know, a lot of times those thoughts crumble under scrutiny.
They do. You realize they were based on assumptions or fears, not facts.
This reminds me of a time when I was convinced I'd bombed a job interview. I spent days replaying it in my head, cringing at everything I'd said.
Oh, I've been there.
But then I forced myself to challenge those thoughts. I asked, okay, did the interviewer actually say anything negative? Were they disengaged?
Did they give you any real reason to think you'd messed up?
And when I really thought about it, I realized they actually complimented me on several things.
See, our minds can really play tricks on us.
It was such a relief to realize how much power I'd given those unfounded worries.
And that's the key. Once you detach from believing that every thought is true, you gain so much freedom.
Okay, here's one I'm a huge advocate for. Physical activity. And I'm not just talking about, like, getting six-pack abs.
Right. It's not just about fitness.
It's about how moving your body actually changes your brain chemistry.
It's like a reset button for your mind. Exercise releases endorphins, those feel-good chemicals.
So next time you're feeling overwhelmed, Try going for a run, hitting the gym.
Even a brisk walk can make a difference.
You'll be surprised how much better you feel afterwards.
And if exercise isn't your thing, there's always journaling. It's like decluttering your mind.
You get all those thoughts out of your head and onto paper.
And that can be so freeing. You can also try creative outlets like painting or playing music.
Anything that helps you express yourself.
Exactly. And don't forget the power of social connection.
Talking things out with a friend, a therapist, anyone you trust.
It can give you a fresh perspective.
It's like having a sounding board to bounce ideas off of.
And sometimes just hearing yourself say those worries out loud, you realize how silly they sound.
Plus, it reminds you that you're not alone in this. Everyone experiences overthinking.
It's part of being human.
So reach out, connect, share those burdens. It can make a world of difference. So we've covered a lot of ground, from the science of overthinking to some seriously practical strategies for breaking free. But before we wrap up, I think it's important to talk about the why bother. What are the potential rewards waiting for us on the other side of all this mental decluttering?
Oh, the benefits are incredible, truly life-changing. I think first and foremost, you'll experience a sense of peace and calm that you might not even realize you were missing.
Like a weight has been lifted.
Exactly. Imagine waking up without that knot of worry in your stomach, feeling more present and engaged throughout your day, and actually enjoying the things you used to stress over.
It sounds pretty amazing.
It really is. And the best part is, this newfound peace can ripple out into every area of your life, starting with your relationships.
Oh, that makes sense.
When you're not constantly lost in your own head, you're more present and attentive to the people you care about.
You're actually there with them, not off in your own little world.
Exactly. You become a better listener, a more supportive friend, a more patient partner. You're able to truly connect without all that mental noise getting in the way.
And on that note, less mental clutter also means more mental bandwidth for focus and productivity.
Absolutely. Imagine tackling your to-do list with laser-like concentration, breezing through projects, and actually feeling energized at the end of the day.
Instead of feeling drained and depleted.
Exactly. It's like you've upgraded your mental operating system. And, maybe the most valuable benefit of all, overcoming overthinking builds resilience.
So it's not just about feeling better in the moment, it's about handling challenges better in the long run.
Exactly. It's like developing mental muscles, strengthening your ability to bounce back from setbacks. Instead of getting knocked down by every obstacle, you learn to ride the waves of life's ups and downs.
You become more adaptable, more flexible.
Exactly. To really bring these concepts home, let's look at a couple of real-life examples. Imagine someone who's been stuck in a rut, feeling unfulfilled in their career. They dream of starting their own business, but the fear of failure has them paralyzed.
So they spend all their time analyzing the risks, the what-ifs.
Right, and those fears become this invisible wall, preventing them from even taking the first step. But what if, instead of getting bogged down in analysis, they shifted to action?
So start taking concrete steps, even if they're small.
Exactly. They could research their market, develop a basic business plan, reach out to potential mentors. Even if they hit some bumps along the way, they keep moving forward.
Because they're focused on doing, not just thinking.
And that shift can change everything. They start feeling more confident, more energized, and more optimistic. And that energy attracts opportunities they might have missed before.
It's like breaking free from overthinking unlocks a whole new level of possibility.
Exactly. Okay, another example that a lot of people can relate to, relationship overthinking.
Oh yeah, we've all been there.
Overanalyzing every text message, every interaction, driving ourselves crazy with insecurities.
It's exhausting.
Yeah.
And it can create so much unnecessary drama.
But what if, instead of letting those anxieties run wild, we chose to communicate openly with our partners?
Talk about our fears, ask for reassurance.
Exactly. And we might find that those fears were unfounded, or our partner is more than happy to provide support.
And that open communication builds trust, right?
Absolutely. It strengthens intimacy and helps us feel more secure.
So the bottom line here, folks, overthinking is a thief. It steals our peace, our joy, our precious time and energy. It can sabotage our relationships, our careers, our overall well-being.
But we don't have to let it win.
We have the power to reclaim our minds. We have the tools, from mindfulness to physical activity to open communication. It's time to stop overthinking and start living.
And remember, the next time you find yourself spiraling, simply notice that awareness is the first step to freedom.
It's like you're shining a light on those thoughts, taking away their power.
You got it.
We hope you found this deep dive insightful. It's been a fascinating exploration of how overthinking affects our lives, but more importantly, how we can overcome it to create a more joyful and fulfilling experience.
Thanks for having me.
Thanks for listening.